Hi, welcome back. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to render your final image. As you can see in the scene, I add a little bit more stuff to fill out the room a little bit more. Before we render, I want to explain the different render engine in Blender. So you look right here. There is 3 render engine in Blender. So Eevee, Workbench, and Cycle. Eevee and Cycle will be the one that you would use the most. In this tutorial, I'll use Cycle. Eevee is a biased render engine, so what that mean is that it doesn't use actual light bounds to calculate how much light in your scene. It will only approximate how much light coming in based on the light source, and that come with its own pros and cons. So pro is that it's rendered extremely fast, and you can see stuff in real time, really easy. Downside is that sometimes it does not look as real as Cycle because Cycle is an unbiased render engine and it will actually calculate the light bounds from your light source to the wall, bounce to the floor, to the ceiling, and then it will actually calculate all that light bounce to light your scene. Cycle is more realistic than Eevee, but it does take a lot longer to render with Cycle. But it doesn't mean you should shy away from Eevee. Eevee is still really great. Eevee is rendered super fast, so it depends on your scene. So in this tutorial, I'll use Cycle, so I can just go to the render property and change the render engine to Cycle. And then right here, I would want to change it from CPU to GPU. This would use the GPU of your laptop to render the pictures instead of your CPU, which is a lot more slower than your GPU. And then for the render sample for the final image, I would want to go around 500 sample. So now we're gonna add a camera. So Shift A, go to camera, add a camera. Then if you click this button right here, this will enter the camera view mode. If you orbit, this will kick you out of the camera view mode. Go back to your camera view, press N, open the Nelly, go to view, and then lock camera to view. Now when you move an orbit around, your camera view will stick to it. So I'll just move this and place it until where I see a good composition for the room. This looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to go N, open the Nelly again, unlock the camera to view, and this will be my camera view for the render. So now let's add an HDRI. So HDRI is an 360-degree image that also carry a light value. So when you put an HDRI into your scene, you can light stuff with an HDRI and it will have the reflection of the pictures. So 2 places I would recommend you to get your HDRI from is Polygon, obviously, and the second is HDRI Haven. And both of these sites will have free HDRI for you to download. And these are all free. You can donate to HDRI Haven if you want to, but if not, you can just go hdrihaven.com and then browse HDR. And then these, you can see all the example of the HDRI you can download for free. When you download the HDRI, same thing with textures, you always want to download 2 variation, one low res and one high res. So I usually download one 1K and one 8K. So download the HDRI you see will suit the scene, and then we'll continue with it. Once you're done downloading it, you can go to shading, change from object to war, Shift A, and then search for an environment texture. Connect this to the background, and now you can open and then direct the HDRI, and then I have a 4K one. And now in order to see the HDRI itself, you go Z and you go render. Here you can see your HDRI loading into the scene. Now I can press this, go back to your camera view, and then press Z, go to render, to see how much light is coming into my scene. So there's not light coming into the scene, so I'm gonna go and rotate the HDRI to get the light source to show into the scene. So I go shading right here. If you click on the texture itself, and if you have the Node Wrangler add-on, you can just hit Control T, and this will insert the texture's coordinate as a mapping to your texture. So now, and then find the light source and then face it into the window. I can just go to the Z-axis and then just rotate. Now I have the light source facing the window, but it still looks pretty dark. I'm going to go add a few more lights to simulate the light from the ceiling light. So I'm going to go back to the material preview. So now I can Shift A, and then I'm going to add light. Area light. As you can see right here, this stem shows where the light is pointing. So I want to make the light a lot bigger. Move it into here. And then move it up to the ceiling. So G, Z, and then move. While it's still choosing that light, I'll go in here to the light property, and then I'll increase the power till where it looks good. So that looks pretty good to me. So same thing for the camera. You can change the focal length to match your needs. You can add depth of field here if you want to, and then you can choose the focus by using this color picker here, and then choose the focus point. And then you can change the f-stop. If you know anything about photography, you can change these stuff, or else you can just leave it. Right now, I don't want any depth of field, so I'm going to turn this off. So this looks pretty good to me, and then I'm ready to render. So I go to render output, and we're going to direct it to my desktop. And I'm going to change it to a JPEG, and then the quality would be 100%. And then I'm ready to render. So to render, you can go render here, and then render image, or press the short key F12. So you can see the render is done. It looks looking pretty good, but I still think it's a little bit dark, and the resolution can be a little bit more higher. So I'm gonna go back, change the resolution and the sample count, and then we'll re-render it again. So to change the sampling, go to render property, sampling, and then I'll change this to 1000. Then I'll re-render as a higher resolution. See right here, it's rendering at 720. I'm gonna change it to a 1080p render. So I'm clicking it. I'm gonna type 1920 by 1080. Now I'm gonna choose the light. Gonna go to the light property, and I'm gonna change this to 2000 to make it a lot more brighter. Now that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and render it now. So the render is done. I think it looks pretty good, and we can save it now. So in order to save it, go to image, and then save as, and then go to wherever you want to save it. I'll save it on the desktop and name it final, and then save as image. Here are some tips on your render. So when you render, when you don't have a lot in a room, don't show the whole room. Right now, I only have this corner furnished out, so I'm not gonna show the whole room. I'm just gonna show this corner because this is where I furnish it, most of my stuff. I've seen so many people render out a whole wide shot of a whole room when there's only a bed, a bedside table, and that's it. Don't feel like you have to show everything in order to convey a scene. If I show this, you can tell this is where I sit down, I can drink my coffee, I look out the windows. You know what it is because you've seen this before. You don't have to show the whole room when you don't have to. That's a really good tips when you're doing 3D render. When you don't have a lot in a scene, don't show it. Show what you have, and that's it. And then things to consider: lighting, texturing, the color of the room. You don't realize how much color convey story. So since I want this room to be a little bit moody, so that's why I put matte black wall, black leather chair, and then very neutral color stuff. I don't want bright color everywhere. So this depends on your scene and what's the story you're trying to tell. Choose the material and the color appropriate for that scene. Since this is a digital workplace, don't be afraid to try out different stuff. If this chair doesn't work, try out different chair, try out different stuff, put different materials on it, and then see which one is more suitable for the scene. Don't be locked out by just one option. Try it out. Don't forget your interior fillers. You can see I got the newspaper, I got the coffee cup, I got the plants on the back. These are the stuff that will make the render looks really good. Pay the extra 10 or 15 seconds to think about what's actually going on, what's the story you're trying to convey, and then try to put that feeling in the object into the scene, and then render it. So that's it for the render. So right now, if you follow the tutorial, you should be able to model a simple room, where to get 3D furniture and how to import or append it, where to get textures and apply it, and finally how to add light, HDRI, a camera, and render everything else. That's it for this tutorial. Good luck.